Summary of Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. The drama begins with two exhausted acquaintances, Estragon and Vladimir, are waiting by the side of the road, close to a tree, and they have come to the conclusion that there is nothing to be done. Estragon struggles to remove his boots. Vladimir inquires of Estragon whether he ever read the Bible. He only remembers some colored maps of the holy place, Estragon says. In his message to Estragon, Vladimir talks about the two thieves who were killed with Jesus. In one of the Gospels, it is stated that one of the thieves was saved, but Vladimir is unsure whether or not this is really stated. Vladimir tells Estragon that they need to stay here and wait for Godot even though Estragon wants to leave. They argue about whether they are in the right place and whether today is the right day for Godot to show up. Estragon falls asleep, but Vladimir wakes him up right away by saying he's been lonely without him. Estragon starts to talk about his dream, but Vladimir scolds him and tells him to keep his bad dreams to himself. Estragon tells Vladimir that they should keep waiting when Vladimir asks what he and Estragon should do. Estragon advises that they hang themselves from the tree while they wait. But they can't agree on who should hang themselves first, and Vladimir thinks they should just wait for Godot. Estragon asks Vladimir what he asked Godot for, and Vladimir replies that he prayed in a general way. Vladimir gives Estragon a carrot because he is hungry. He only has turnips in his pockets, though. He finds a carrot at last and gives it to Estragon. Vladimir tells Estragon that they are tied to Godot when Estragon asks. There is a loud scream offstage that stops them. Poor Pozzo and Lucky come in. Lucky is being pushed forward by Pozzo, who has a rope around his neck and whips him like a pack animal. Lucky has to carry Pozzo's things. Pozzo then says his name, and Estragon asks if this is Godot. He pulls on Lucky's rope and calls him a pig. Lucky brings him food and his poop. Estragon asks Pozzo for the bones that are left over after he eats some chicken. He is given the bones by Pozzo. Vladimir is furious that Pozzo is treating Lucky so badly and wants to leave. But Pozzo tells him to stay in case Godot shows up. The king asks Lucky to put down his bags. Lucky could put them down and be fine, so Pozzo says he must be carrying them because he wants to. He says Lucky is trying to make Pozzo like him so that Pozzo doesn't fire him because he has many slaves. He says he will sell Lucky at a fair. Estragon is given a towel by Pozzo to bring to Lucky when he starts to cry. When Estragon comes up to Lucky, Lucky kicks him hard in the shin. Pozzo then starts to cry and say he can't bear it. Lucky makes Vladimir cry, so Vladimir scolds him. For some reason, Pozzo calms down and searches for his lost pipe. His speech is about night and dusk. After that, he asks what he can do to help Estragon and Vladimir because they were kind to him. For their fun, he offers to make Lucky dance, read, sing, or think. Lucky dances, and his hat falls off. Pozzo tells Vladimir that Lucky needs his hat to think, so Vladimir puts it back on his head. Lucky then starts a long, rambling speech. Pozzo gets ready to leave and says goodbye to Estragon and Vladimir, but he doesn't move. Pozzo and Lucky leave in the end. Estragon also wants to leave, but Vladimir tells him they have to stay and wait for Godot. A boy walks onto the stage with a message from Godot. He says Godot won't show up today, but he will the next day. He tells Vladimir that he takes care of Godot's goats for a living and that Godot is a good boss. Estragon and Vladimir are getting ready to leave for the night as the boy leaves. They say they're leaving, but don't move. The first act is over. It starts the next day at the same time and place as the first act. Vladimir comes in and sings. Estragon walks in and tells Vladimir that he was hit for no reason the night before. Vladimir and Estragon are glad to see each other again and hug. Estragon then asks Vladimir what they should do. He is told to wait for Godot by Vladimir. Estragon doesn't remember who Pozzo and Lucky are when Vladimir talks about them. Besides that, he doesn't remember where they were waiting the day before. Vladimir says he and Estragon picked grapes for the same man a long time ago in the Macon country, but Estragon doesn't remember this either. Vladimir tells Estragon to talk about anything to break the silence after a long time of silence. But the two of them have a hard time coming up with something to talk about. Vladimir asks Estragon if he really doesn't remember Pozzo and Lucky. It's clear to Estragon that someone kicked him and that Pozzo gave him chicken bones. Because he doesn't have any carrots, Vladimir gives Estragon a radish or turnip. Before he wakes up, Estragon falls asleep. He starts to tell Vladimir about his dream, but Vladimir cuts him off and tells him not to talk about it. Vladimir tells Estragon that they need to stay and wait for Godot even though Estragon wants to leave. Vladimir finds Lucky's hat on the ground and puts it on. The two of them try on different hats by trading theirs and Lucky's hat back and forth. Vladimir wants to play at Pozzo and Lucky, so he and Estragon act like each other. Estragon briefly leaves the stage and then comes back to say that they are coming. At each end of the stage, he and Vladimir stay alert. After calling each other names, they apologize and hug. Poor Pozzo and Lucky come in. Pozzo is now blind and is right behind Lucky. Lucky stops when he sees Estragon and Vladimir, and Pozzo runs into him. They both hit the ground, and Pozzo can't get back up. Vladimir and Estragon think about asking Pozzo for something in return for helping them up. Pozzo screams for help and offers money to anyone who can help. Even though Vladimir wants to help Pozzo get up, he trips and falls. He tries to help Vladimir get up, but he himself trips and falls. After a while of no one being able to get up, Estragon offers that he and Vladimir try to stand up, which they can do without any trouble. Vladimir tells Estragon to wait because he still wants to leave. He suggests that they help Pozzo get up for now. When they stand Pozzo up, he asks who they are, but he can't remember either of them from the day before. When Estragon is asked what time it is, he says it's morning, but Vladimir is sure it's evening. Vladimir asks Pozzo when he lost his sight. Pozzo replies, "The blind don't know time." Estragon is told to check on Lucky, he does so. Estragon walks over to Lucky and kicks him several times. He yells, "Up pig," and pulls on Lucky's line. As they leave the stage, Estragon falls asleep. Estragon wakes up to Vladimir's words that he was lonely. Every day, the same boy comes in with a word from Godot. He won't be there today, but he will be there tomorrow. The boy tells Vladimir that Godot doesn't do anything when he asks him. The boy is told to tell Godot that he saw Vladimir by Vladimir. The boy goes away. They want to go far away, but Vladimir tells them they can't because they have to wait for Godot tomorrow. Estragon tells them to use his belt to hang themselves from the tree, but when they test its strength by pulling on both ends, it breaks. Vladimir and Estragon get ready to rest for the night. Although they say they're leaving, neither of them moves.
About the author. Samuel Beckett was born and raised in Dublin. He went to Trinity College, Dublin, and studied English, French, and Italian there. After college, he taught in Paris, where he met James Joyce, another modernist Irish writer, and worked on both creative and critical works. It was in 1930 that he went back to Ireland and got a job as a teacher at Trinity College. He quit his job quickly, though, in 1931, and continued to write while traveling around Europe. In 1937, he went to Paris and stayed there until 1939, when World War II broke out. When the Nazis took over France, he joined the French resistance. During this time, he kept writing, and a trio of famous books called Molly, Malone Dies, and The Unnameable were among them. However, it was his experimental plays, especially Waiting for Godot, that made him famous. It was first performed in Paris in 1953, but it was written in French. After this, there were more plays, including The Experimental Endgame. In the 1960s, Beckett's literary reputation and praise slowly got better. In 1969, he won the Nobel Prize for Literature and gave the money to charity. Beckett died in 1989.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.